Yeah, well, the three questions are: what do I want for my future? What am I doing now? And how do I feel about what I'm doing now? And it's kind of like what you were talking about, like who do I want to be? Like
Yeah,
what does the person that I want to be look like?
yeah.
And what am I doing to get there? So kind
I
of
think it's
almost
important as well when you're asking those questions to step away from what you want externally
right.
and really look at who you want to be internally, like how are you behaving? Because if we're always looking at the external and the things that we want, this is just my opinion, the way that it worked for me. When I was constantly looking for the external, all I'm doing is I'm fueling that problem with instant gratification.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely.
So
Well, it,
flipping it, go.
sorry, Stephen, to say to that, I've been more on my own in the past couple of years than I have most of my life, but I
Yeah,
feel less lonely than I ever have.
yeah,
And it's because I feel like I'm living a value-based lifestyle and I'm okay with who I am. And the people that I do spend time with, I feel a genuine connection to. And a
yeah.
lot of it's virtual, to be honest. I feel more connected and vulnerable with the people over Zoom than one of my friends over here. I'm sure he's good. I love my buddy who's over there. He hears me right now. Um, but I don't have, 30 people in my life like I once did. Um, and yes, I feel more fulfilled. I feel more in comfort on my own. I don't feel like I'm needing to be around people so that I'm not feeling alone. Um, and also that I'll say myself, I constantly was seeking external validation, that approval and recognition seeking of not just do you like me, but am I a good person? I need you to say I am in order for me to know it.
Yeah.
And that's because in my opinion, I was living a values. I was living a people pleasing, please like me life, right?
Yeah,
I didn't have a compass of who I wanted to be. And
yeah,
now that it's like I said to you earlier, sometimes I'm doing things and it doesn't feel good like it used to. My pursuit at times, it was like I knew what I was doing was the right thing because it felt good. And if it didn't feel good, that's the wrong thing. Now, because I'm doing things that coincide with my values, something as simple as washing the dishes doesn't feel good. And it's like, yeah, but I do that because it coincides with being the person I want to be. Right. Before I just let the dishes pile, right? And maybe even throw them out and buy some new ones. But
do you guys find that
um,
people show up in your meetings though, like looking for this kind of insight, or do you think it's like how do people show up and how do you bring this into the conversation when they come into your meetings? Like, is there a specific way into it? Do you find that people like some people come into these meetings and they're really looking for, why do I do what I do and how do I change that and how do I keep going? But some people come in and they've got a really rigid point of view on what's happening. Like, how does it show up in your meetings?
were you going to say?
So
Go ahead on.
sorry. So I run a young adult meeting, young adults meeting. And so a lot of the people that come to my meeting, they're on the younger end, right? They're like 18, 19, 20. They're just discovering that, oh, maybe alcohol isn't that great for me. Maybe this isn't that great for me, right? So like every single week I have, one or two new people that show up and um it's 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 fun for me because I love doing these tools, the HOV, the CBA, and I really do love it doing it for the first time to somebody and having that opportunity to show them kind
Yeah.
of the way we work at Smart. Um, but it's also given me a lot of time to kind of sort of see patterns emerge, right? And I find that when people show up, they really don't know what to expect. And so if you kind of guide them through it, you hear out their story and their check-in, why are they here, and then you're like, hey, by any chance, have you heard like of the hierarchy of values, or have you set, ever made a list of your values? And then usually they say yes or no. Well, if it's okay with you, do you mind if I just walk you through the way we kind of do it in Spark, right? And then they're not every single time they're like, yeah, sure, right? And I see some skepticism in a lot of people's eyes, especially at the very beginning. But what I love about these tools is that they kind of feel like, oh, I'm just writing out my values. Oh, this is just a pros and cons list. But there is a point where it kind of does like a 180 and shifts the way you start thinking about it, right? Um, and so for the hierarchy of values, it's always usually the same thing. People write out their values, and I always tell people that contrary to how other smart meetings run, they kind of do a quick hierarchy of values, like on the spot. I say that listen, this is something that takes time. It's really deep because you don't you like it takes time to come like you have to be very introspective to figure out what your values are. It's not something that you can
Absolutely.
rattle off.
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't done it before. And so I'm like, but let's just go through it and see what we come up with. And so everyone, most people, family, friends, love, God, stuff like that. Um, and then when you get to, so where does your drug of choice, your behavior of choice fit into that? That's when you see the
Yeah.
and then they'll be like, oh, maybe that's number four. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, but you said your family's number one. How does that and then you kind of see them getting, eyes opening up. And it's the same thing with the CBA that they think of it as a pros and cons, but as soon as you say, okay, for all the benefits of doing, list out whether it's long term or a short term benefit, right? And it's always the same thing all the way down the line, right?
Right.
um using the benefit of using is always short term. I don't coach them into like
No.
doing this. I ask from them, so they do like the benefits of using all short term, the cons of using all long term, and the fact that it comes from within them and they're not being taught this, I think it's very impactful.
Yeah.
um and those that I've had the opportunity to do it with, I've noticed them keep coming back.
Yeah.
So it does make an impact. So that's how it's shown up in my meeting.
Man, can I throw out just one thing too? That I've
Yeah.
noticed, I find it interesting whenever I've done a CBA with people, there's one word they put in all four quadrants, and it's sleep. And you're like, why do you do this? It helps me sleep. Why do you want to stop? It's screwing up my sleep. What are the problems with it? It's my sleep. It's like, how is that possible? Like, it's you bring that logic in front of a person and they start scratching their head, right? But they do. They put the word sleep in all four quadrants in my meetings.